Good day, guys. Um, Welcome to this video. Today I wanted to talk about VLANs and VTP for the trunking protocol. As you can see in this topology, we have three switches. This is a multi-layer switch, and our switch three, and we have one router right here. So we have the engineering PCs and the sales PCs. So I just want to show you guys that our our um our switches are in factory sorry in factory default state. We have nothing created, and even if I do show T VTP status, this is the status. We have not created anything yet. Okay, all the modes are disabled and everything is. There's no domain name or anything like that, okay? So what we want to start by doing is that the trunk mode is set to auto, okay? And the interface is currently in the access port operational mode using, the VLAN one. So what we want to do is we want to configure the links between switches as trunks, okay? So on my small topology here, I'm gonna access the gigabit 0/1, and I'll get to global config, and I'll say on interface 0/1, I'll say switch port mode trunk, and it's up, okay? And then I'm gonna get on switch 2, and I'm gonna do the same thing, but then check what's gonna happen here. If I say switch, yeah, mm, sorry, I have to I have to get to 0/1 interface and say switch port mode trunk. Check what happens. Did I miss? It sends me a, a message. Okay, it says command rejected. An interface whose trunk encapsulation is auto cannot be configured to trunk mode. So what we do, we could say switch port trunk encapsulation. We set it to .1q. Okay. When we do that, and if we run again this command, it won't send us any message again, okay? So now we're good. We configured this interface here, and we want to configure for this interface gigabit 0/2. So we'll just say 0/2 and do the same thing, switch port, trunk, and cap .1q, and we say mode trunk, okay? And then we can come on switch 3, and it's gigabit 0/2. Okay, so we'll say on interface gigabit 0/2, and we'll say switch port mode trunk, and now it's up. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to configure our switches to be we're gonna create a VTP server and a VTP domain. We'll call it. You can give the domain any name that you want to. Okay. So what we'll do essentially is to make our switch one the server, and then our switch two will be the that it will be transparent. and then the switch 3 will be um, our it will be our client. Okay, so let's try and do that right now. So we'll say VTP domain, we'll give it corp, and then we'll say VTP mode, we'll say server, and we'll come here and do the same thing. Okay, we have to be on global config. Remember, we have to be on global config. The domain will be corp. Please, you have to make sure that you spell it exactly the same. It has to be consistent, okay? And then we'll say VTP transparent. And then we come to our switch 3. We go back to global config and we say VTP domain. We say corp. And then we say VTP mode client, okay? So what happens with these three um these three modes here, let me show you. As you can see, there's the client, transparent, and server. So you can't create when you assign um, a switch to be a client, you can't create any new VLANs on a client on a device that's set as a client. You can only create on a server and transparent. The reason why we set our switch to be transparent is just so that it knows what's going on. So, for example, in this side, you can see, let me try and scroll down a little bit. So, these two are sales PCs on switch 3, right? And here there's an engineering PC, right? So, in order for, let's say, our engineer PC on this side, engineer 1, for example, to ping engineer 3, this switch needs to know that, okay, there is an engineer VLANs, and this traffic is going to the other engineer VLANs, which is on this side of which is on this interface of gigabit 0/2, right? So like this transparent, um, trunk has to know what's going on in the network. Okay, so with that being done, what we'll need to do now is to did I set this as a client? Yes, I did. Okay. So now all we have to do is we have to create our VLANs. So to create VLANs is very simple. You just the command is VLAN 10, and then inside of the VLAN, it takes you inside of the VLANs. We inside of this VLAN 10. Okay. We can give it the name. It's going to be the engineer VLAN. And then we'll say VLAN 20. We'll call it the cells. Um, and then we have to create the last VLAN. This will be the native VLAN, okay? I'll explain why in a moment. We'll come on the switch 2 and do the same thing. VLAN 10, the name will be engineer VLAN, and on VLAN 20, it will be sales. And then on VLAN, if I can spell correctly, the name would be native. You remember I told you that you can't create a VLAN on switch 3, right? So look what happens when I try and create a VLAN here. VLAN 10. You see the message that it's sending? VTP VLAN configuration not allowed when device is in client mode, okay? All VLAN 3, all switch 3 can do is it can learn from switch 1. Because you remember we never created any VLANs here, but it has VLANs, these VLANs. It has the engineering VLANs, the sales VLANs, and the native VLANs, right? But we never created any VLANs on it, remember? It just learned from the server. It's gonna learn from the server, you know. It's gonna see in the database and stuff, and it's gonna be on its own database as well. So now what we want to do is we actually want to um, configure the trunk links, okay, to use VLAN 199 as the native VLAN for better security, so that any untagged traffics are gonna be forwarded through that. Okay, so we wanna go to this interface from switch one. We're gonna come through this interface here, and we're gonna say switch ports trunk native VLAN 199. Right, that's it. And we come to switch two and do the same thing. And here as you can see here, it's saying inconsistent local VLAN. Okay, it's saying that there's a mismatch. The native VLAN discovered on gigabit 0/1 and stuff, and so we have to configure this to be consistent. So we have to get on this interface as well, and we have to allow uh, the trunk native VLAN. Um, and now the connection is restored. Okay, you see that? Unblocking, it's unblocking, and now the consistency is restored. And we have to do the same thing as well on this, which is gigabit 0/2. So we'll say gigabit 0/2, and we'll say switch ports trunk native VLAN. If I can spell, I've been misspelling this for so long. So that's it. But then here it's gonna send us that message of inconsistent VLAN, local VLAN. And what we have to do is we have to get on that interface as well. And um, okay, it's on /2 gigabit/2. Yeah, okay. So we'll do that here as well, and we say trunk native VLAN 199, and now it's restored. Okay. Now what we have to do now that we've set all our trunks to use the native VLAN, now we need to configure the switch port connected to the PCs with the correct configurations. Okay, so basically what we need to do is we literally just need to configure these two PCs and put them in the VLAN 10. Okay, these two links here will attach them to VLAN 10. So let me show you how you do this. So we'll say interface range. Okay. When you say the range, you can specify the range. We can say 0/1 to 2. Okay. Because they are both on interface zeros slash this one is on /1 and that one is on /2. That is why I put the 0/1 uh you know that small dash line and 2. So when I enter, now we can configure these and we can say switch port mode access, and then we'll say switch access. We give them the VLAN 10, right? And then we'll say interface for this sales PC, which is on fast 0/3. We'll do the same thing, switch port mode access, okay? And then we'll say switch port access VLAN 20 because they are on VLAN 20. The sales PCs are on VLAN 20. And we have to come on switch 3 and do the exact same thing. Exact same thing, okay? So I'm gonna push it a bit this side so we can see. So I'm going to say interface range um, for 0/122 will be switch port mode access, and then we'll say switch port access VLAN 20, and then I'll say 0/3. That one will be switch port mode access, and then we will say switch port access VLAN 10. Okay, that was the last of our configurations for now. What we can do now is we can try and ping PC, the engineer PC1 to um to the PC3, which is 10.10.12, if I'm correct. Yeah, it's right there. So let's try and ping it. It's working. We're having connection. Let's try and ping. It's from cells one. Where's cells one? Okay, cells one. So we'll try and ping 10.10.20.12. That's the engineer, but that's the cells three. So if we ping, we see that we're having connection, okay? So now what we want to do is we want to use our router, and we're going to set this as our um, default gateway for the engineer PC and the sales PC. Okay, so we'll use interface the interface 0/0 to be assigned to the engineer PC, and interface this second interface here. I mean, it's gonna be this interface, which will be for the who are these for the sales PC. Okay, so let's get on it and get on interface 0. Sorry, it's fast interface 0/0. Yeah, it's 0/0. So we'll give it an IP address. This will be the default gateway for the sales, the engineer um PCs. And we say no shutdown, and I have to get on the other interface, which is fast. Yeah, it's 0/1, and we do the same thing, and we give it the 20. That one, yeah, sells it. Yeah, and we say no shut. Okay, so right now that we've configured these two, we need to come back to our switch 2, and we have to configure the switch 2 to support inter-VLAN inter-VLAN routing using our router 1 as the default gateway. Okay, so how we do this, the command is very simple. So we need to access those um, interfaces, right? So we'll say on interface 0/1, we'll say switch port mode access. Okay, it's the same that we've been running, and we'll say switch port access VLAN 10, which is the engineer VLAN. Okay, and then we'll say on this interface, which is this one right here. Okay, this one right here, it has to have access, and we'll say access VLAN 20. Okay, so if our configuration is correct, I can get on engineer one PC and try and ping the default gateway for the sales PC, okay? And it's going through, okay? And also I can try and do that from the sales PC, and try and ping uh, the default gateway for the engineer PC, and it's working as well, okay? This connection, this connectivity, okay? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to clean up, uh, sorry, we're going to shut down interface 0/1 on router 1, just for practice, okay? So, and we say shut down. That's how you shut down interface. It went down. Now it's down, okay? Okay, it's down. So, um, right now, what I want to do is, option 2, this is called router on a stick, okay? We're going to use one stick to assign, um our different villains, sorry, our different villains into this single stick here. So um from this router, we'll get in interface 0, fast 0. Sorry, let me quickly clear this. And we have to clean the IP addresses that we have assigned, and we're just gonna say no shutdown. And now we'll do this interface fast 0/0, and what we do is dot 10, specifying that this is for the um for the VLAN, for the 10 VLAN, the VLAN that we configured, okay? And then once we do that, we say encapsulation dot 1Q for VLAN 10, okay? Check what it's saying. We're in the sub interface, okay? We're inside of the sub interface. And so from here now, we can give an IP address, the IP of 10, the 10, the 10.1, and it's still our default gateway, and um a we're still using a /24, okay? And we have to do the same thing, um that 20 for this time, okay? Because this time now we're trying to do this for VLAN 20, right? And we have to say encapsulation still dot 1Q, and we say 20. And then with this, we give it an IP address. It's 10.10.20.1. This is the default gateway still, okay? So on our switch 2, now here we're done on the router, okay? So on our switch 2, we have to support inter-vlan using router 1 as the default gateway, okay? So what we have to do is we have to come here on the, we have to get on the interface first /0, because it's this link here going up there. And sorry, let me close these. Okay, so we have to get on that interface, okay, which is 0/1. And what we're going to say is we have to set that into uh we have to set it into a trunk encapsulation dot 1Q, okay? So we can trunk that link, and then we will we will say switch port mode trunk. All we're doing was just trunking that port, okay? So now what we have to do is we are still going to try and verify, on Engineer PC1 if it has connectivity to the VLAN 20 on router 1. Okay, so let's try and get on Engineer 1 PC. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to ping 10.10.20.1 to see if there's still connectivity. There is connectivity, and I'm gonna try and do that with um, the sales PC as well. Um, Sales one. Okay, so we'll try and ping the 10.10.10.1 to see if there's connectivity. Um, Wait, did I make a mistake? Okay, I see that it's going to fail. Okay, let me see this. Uh, Engineer 1 can ping. Okay, let me see if Engineer 1 can ping Sales 1. Okay. Um, the first ping might fail. Okay, okay. Well, the Engineer PCs have access to um, the Sales PCs for some reasons, and the Sales PCs don't have um, access to Engineer default gateway for some reason as well. Um, but now let me try and shut down this interface as well. Um, Phase 0, let's shut it down. So this third process here, it's literally a layer 3 switch from this switch here. Okay. What we want to do is we want to enable layer 3 routing on our switch 2. And how you do that is by typing the word IP routing. This is it. Now this switch operates like a router. It's not a switch anymore. It's now a router. It's a multi-layer switch now. Okay. So now after you do that, we can just say interface VLAN 10 and we say IP address and we give it the IP address of the layer 10, I mean, of the VLAN 10 interface, and it's gonna be our default gateway, right? And we say interface VLAN 20, and we say IP address, and we give it our default gateway, right? For both. So now let's try and see if our engineer can still ping the default gateway. Let's see. Okay, it's going through. Let's see if our engineer can also ping um this is sales one PC. The first couple ones might fail because it's our pockets. Okay, it's going through. Okay, so this was basically we started with just basic, you know, um, VLAN protocol and um, VTP and access the trunk port and everything. And then we went on and we tried to spice it up a little bit. We tried to use um, our inter-VLAN routing option one, to separate interfaces on our router, and our router became our default gateway. All right, we did set the engineered default gateway on these two interfaces here. One was for the engineered interface, and the second one was for the sales interface. And then after that, what we did is we went into our option two, which was router on a stick. Router on a stick, we used one interface only. We shut down this interface and used this interface only, right? And we used the encapsulation .1q10 to specify which interface was gonna use which VLAN. And then after that, um, we went on and enabled layer 3 switch routing on our switch 2. And we wrote the keyword IP routing, and our switch 2 became literally a layer 3 switch. So it could get IP addresses, because if you know about this, switches don't get more than one IP address. It can only support one IP address. But once we activated IP routing, our switch took two different IP addresses. All right. And we still had connectivity between our, between our different devices. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. I appreciate you. These are just the studies that I'm doing for my CCNA. Please, if you have any questions or if you saw some mistakes that I made during this video, I would, ask you to please write them down. Or if there was some commands that I might have run that you didn't see, please try and write them down. I'll try and do my best to make sure that command the command line is a bit bigger next time. I'm going to try and see on the you know GUI if I can up the size a little bit of my commands. So yeah, guys, thank you very much. This is a self-study session on the VTP, which is 802.1q for the virtual trunk protocol. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and next time.